Okay, then let's begin. Guys, thanks very much for joining. This is amazing that you came here. My ultimate goal here is just to share insights so that your operations improve, your success rates improve. We see when we analyze situation about regarding browser fingerprints and detections, we see that everything is possible. So there are people who are generating incredible amounts of revenue using multi-login, and while analyzing the whole situation, we understood that knowledge is the key. And this is kind of like the first step we attempt to do, is just to share our knowledge. So eventually you will kind of also apply this to your business and hopefully improve your success rates. Make sure that you actually stick until the end. I have a couple of bonuses for you. This is something we've worked quite a while right now. So make sure to stay until the end. And, some of this information that you will find, it might be something that you know, but the point here is that you find at least one or two things that you didn't know and things that you can apply. And ultimately, if this happens, then I think we have successfully made this webinar for you. So today we're going to talk about industry-leading trends. These are kind of things that we have investigated for a long time. These are the things that we've worked on, and this is around which we are creating multi-login. So actually, before we begin, we have to understand a very important topic, a very important concept called typicality. And the best way to describe this typicality is that we all have these different browser fingerprints that websites detect, these IP address that websites detect. But in order for any system to recognize you or track you or understand if it's you who is coming from these accounts, any system works in the boundaries of a concept that we call typicality. And we can boil this down to two main concepts. The more variations of a browser fingerprint, the easier it is to track you. So if there is a parameter that has different variations across multiple users, then we call it high entropy, which means the website can more easily track you. Then we have less variations, less typicality. This means that, for example, there is a parameter that doesn't have a lot of variations, and we call it small entropy. The entropy reduces. These are very kind of educational, not education. These terms are usually used in research papers, but we do need to understand it to apply it to our work. So the less variations, the more typical, the more difficult it is to track you. For example, let's say there is a parameter called if cookies are enabled. I'm sure you guys know that almost all users have cookies enabled, except maybe if somebody is using a browser like Tor, where cookies can be disabled. So that is the main key here, is that there are browser fingerprints that have high entropy, and there are browser fingerprints that have small entropy. And ultimately, any system works within these boundaries. A very good example is that, for example, I have 12 cows right here, and I want to track this specific cow right here, this specific cow. Now, the thing is that it is very difficult for me to track this specific cow because all of these cows are red. However, if we have cows of different colors, for example, we have two purple ones, one green one, 3 red ones, 4 blue ones, and two yellow ones, as I said. Then what we can do, ultimately, we can categorize them into different colors. And now tracking one specific cow is much more easier. So as you can see, for example, if I want to track this specific cow who is also red, I can then later, for example, learn that these red cows also have, for example, different eye color. And then by utilizing, understanding that the cow is red, I can put it to a smaller group. And then by checking its eye color, I can quite accurately identify the right cow, or at least I have the higher probability to identify this cow. And for us, if we would like to manage our multiple accounts in a way that websites don't detect us, then we kind of need to strive to be within that group that has less variation. So we kind of want to be in a group that has a lot of doesn't have a lot of variations. Yes, we want to be in that group where everybody is the same. And so naturally, the very first question when we think about if we want to manage multiple accounts, what browser we should use. We should use a browser that is that is used by the most amount of users, because like it will be much more difficult for a website to detect us, to detect multiple accounts that we are running. It will be much more difficult to do so. To answer this question, we can just quickly look at the browser market share. Now, it's like, bear with me, it's very, very small numbers, but we can zoom in. As we can see, in 2016, Chrome roughly dominated 50% of the market share. Firefox was 7.97, and that is on all platforms right here. Now in 2021, this has increased by 15%, and Firefox share has decreased almost almost by 100% has been decreased. So it was 8, now it's actually it decreased. Yeah. And if we take a look, for example, at the browser market share in desktop, on desktop browsers, then we can see on Chrome, Chrome dominated 61.17%, and Firefox was 15.45%. Now in 2021, it's now 67%, and Firefox is 7.91. So naturally, for us, a very simple concept when we understand that for us to get more in order for websites to detect us with much more difficulty, we have to choose a browser that is popular. And also another thing, we can also take a look at the mobile versus desktop. I will not cover it here into too much detail. Basically, we all know that in 2021, mobile conquers the world, and this is basically it. We can see that in 2021, mobile, there are 55% of mobile users on the web. In 2016, there were only 43.93%. Naturally, this means that, of course, one of the best options for you is to use Chromium-based browsers. We have Mimic for this. This Mimic is very good for most of the cases, and Mimic should be your go-to browsers when we talk about majority of our services. Majority of website services. However, one thing is very important to point out here is that there is a very good application for StealthFox browser, and this is specifically for Google services. We have seen that StealthFox browser outperform Mimic browser for Google-related services, and we talk about Google Search, Gmail, Google AdSense, and other Google services. So StealthFox plus Google equals love. And we're actually not really sure why this happens, but we do have a theory. Since Chrome is it's a Google development project, they do have certain APIs that they can see if it's a real Chrome or not. And the thing is with real Chrome or not, it's also you shouldn't think of it as being something very suspicious, because a lot of Chromium-based browsers right now, they act and feel as normal Chrome. So Google will not necessarily ban you for using Mimic browser. They will not necessarily ban you for using any other Chrome browser for the same reason. But we just see that ultimately, statistically speaking, Google services really work on StealthFox. So if your business is heavily relies on Google services, then definitely start using StealthFox browser. Operating systems. And this is very important. Now, we also notify about this in our application, but this is we research browser fingerprints quite extensively, and this is just a no-brainer. You should be doing these things this way. So here's what you can do. If you're creating a browser profile, a Windows browser profile, then you should launch it on Windows. That is correct. That is good. If you're creating a Mimic browser profile, which operating system is macOS, then you should launch it on the Mac operating system. This is correct. However, if you're launching a browser profile which is configured for Windows and you're launching it on Mac, then this is bad. And honestly, there is so much things that websites can do to find out that it's a different operating system that this presentation here we will simply not fit all of this information here. It's just too much things that a website can perform to recognize if it's a virtual operating system. We call it a virtual operating system, which means that you're emulating an operating system from which you're emulating a different operating system. Yes, or your original operating system where you're launching a browser profile is different from the one that you're showing inside the browser profile. So definitely make sure these things are consistent, that if you have Windows, then you launch and create only Windows browser profiles. And if you're working on Mac, make sure you create browser profiles and launch these browser profiles. You create Mac browser profiles and launch them on Mac. If you're really interested into understanding how it works and why it's so easy to detect, check our blog post regarding this topic. There's a lot of information there. It's a bit technical, but it just proves and shows that the amount of detection algorithms the websites can deploy to detect it is just endless. A quick example from this post is that websites can actually different operating systems, they have different they have different emojis installed, and just by rendering an emoji they can see what operating system you're using. Another thing is fonts. They can see that default fonts that are on macOS, they are different from Windows, and when they render and see them, they will find inconsistencies. The thing is that it's also pretty much almost impossible to emulate it. Now, of course, in multi-login, we work hard to find out different technology. We've tried to find different technologies, but we haven't done so. Of course, there are some experimentation work done in the background, but until we find out a way to do it, this is our best bet into decreasing our band rates and increasing success rates. Proxies, this is super important. Yes, so proxies is the thing is, we work also with teams and we work with users, and when users say that there's there's some restrictions and bans, one of the first things you have to do is just to change a proxy. And I don't switching the blame to other providers, but that's just simply how it is. We have two types of different proxy providers. Here we have two different types that you should know. These are residential IPs and data center IPs. I will quickly go through if you don't know the difference. Now, residential IPs are IPs that belong to internet service providers. These IPs are used at your home, used also by mobile devices. This is something you just go home, plug in your internet cable, and you will get a residential IP. Data center IP belongs to data centers. On these IPs, websites are hosted, servers are hosted, databases are hosted. Everything that is done to communicate within the servers. So these are data center IPs. And we advise not to use data center IPs. We advise to use residential IPs. Now, to be honest, we have quite a bit of users who are successfully using data center IPs, who are successfully using data center IPs for their target services. This is true. Some people can use data center and they go away with it, but ultimately, in the end, even those users who are using data center IPs, at some point they will come to us and say, my accounts are getting banned. And the best way is to switch to residential IPs. At some point, they do get banned. But if you did find a perfect setup, your perfect setup, and you're using data center IPs and it works, then I congratulate you. Good job. Definitely don't let anyone know that it's working, and definitely don't share, because this works. However, there are ways how to use even residential IPs, and they might not even be expensive for you. So one thing is very important. What I would like to notice is that at the moment we have residential IPs, we have data center IPs, but at the moment mobile IPs is king. Mobile IPs are the best, and not only they are the best, they're also very cheap alternative to residential IPs that are used, for example, at your home internet. I will quickly talk about why mobile proxies are the best, why they are good. The thing is that we know that IPv4 addresses are limited. I'm not sure if you know about this, but IPv4 addresses are sold out. There is no IPv4 addresses available right now. And companies who reserve different lists of IPv4 addresses, these companies are servers. These companies are internet service providers, mobile service providers, and they reserve these IPv4. But the thing is, right now in the world, there's a big lack of IPv4 addresses. There's not a lot of IPv4 addresses. There's not a lot of them. So companies have to reserve, have to think how to reuse them. And they use a so-called NAT technology to reuse these IPv4 addresses. And the thing is, what it means is that this NAT technology means that the same IPv4 address can, I made a typo, can exist on multiple devices simultaneously. This IPv4, for example, that you have on your mobile device, on my mobile device, I also have like some IPv4 right now connected. And it's super likely that the same IPv4 I have here, some other person in the same area has this IP address. They use NAT technology to route traffic, and so the device is connected correctly. And another thing with mobile IPs is that the same IPv4 are, like IPv4 addresses are rotated very frequently. This is because like mobile IPs, they are received from a cell tower. And as a mobile user, you frequently travel from one point to another. And when you travel to a different part of the city, you will be connected to a different cell tower. And hence that cell tower will have a different IP range, and then your IP will change very quickly. Here's how it works, like illustratively, if I illustrate the situation. There's a cell tower. Now in your city, you might have like maybe hundreds of these cell towers. This cell tower has a specific IP range. Maybe it has 100, maybe it's 500, but around maybe thousands and much more users are actually connected to this tower. And as a result, for example, it has only 2 IP addresses in this simple example. Now, of course, it cannot give different IP addresses to different users because it doesn't have enough. So what it gives, for example, to these 3 devices, this cell tower gives an IP address starting with 123. And for other 3 devices, it gives a different IP address that starts with 321. And what ultimately it means, like imagine if you're managing multiple accounts, this means that if you're using a mobile IP, Facebook, Google, or any other website, how incentivized is this service to block this IP address? Likely no at all. And the reason, the main reason, because is if they do block this IPv4 of that specific user, they risk at blocking normal other users as well. Another reason why is that the IPv4, mobile IPv4s, they change frequently. So you will not have issues if your browser profiles have mobile IPs that change often, because it's normal, absolutely normal situation in the wild. Now you have a couple of mobile proxy providers. There's Sox.com, Proxy Empire, Oxylabs, Bright Data. You can also check for different like offers on multilogin.com/proxy. We also provide different deals if you're interested. But you actually can build your own. Now, mobile proxies are they're quite expensive. They are good, but they're expensive. Plus, you also have to do your own due diligence sometimes to check if the IPs that they give you are actually mobile. So you have to do that. But you actually can build your own. And if you don't have enough money to buy a residential IP proxy, that's understandable. You can use your own. So instead of buying data center proxies that do not work, use a simple USB dongle instead. And the way how it works is that you simply launch a browser profile. You put in your dongle inside your laptop and use that IP address on that browser profile. Then you take it out, close the browser profile. Actually, no, close the browser before, take the dongle out, and then put your dongle again and launch a second browser profile. Tedious? Yes. Then you should use this method to earn more money and then buy residential IP addresses or residential proxies. But it will work, and it will provide you high quality mobile IP addresses only for the price of an internet subscription in your specific region. You can build also, once this works for you, you can also think about building your own proxy farms. There are people who actually provide provide like these things, provide these things as a service where they build like these proxy farms for you. We might have in the future, we might have some non-complicated instruction manual how you can do it yourself. There's also a very interesting service that I stumbled upon, which is iProxy.online. This service gives you an opportunity to take your Android phone and convert it into a mobile proxy. Very cool service, not expensive at all. Starts from I think $8 per proxy, and you can easily use your phone to like as a proxy. And then you can also scale this by buying more phones or buying some cheap phones or taking some old phones that you have and eventually working in multiple browser profiles at the same time. Very good service. No referral link here. We are just partnering up with Proxy Online. It's a very cool service. Check them out. They have been on the market for over one year, and their proxy service is stable. Cookies. Let's talk about cookies, farming cookies. Now, cookies, we'll also talk about the future of cookies. Just let me quickly check chat. There's been a lot of things. Okay, a lot of questions. Well, cool. Thank you. You're very engaging, guys. Thanks very much. Continue. Thank you very much. Okay, so cookies. So you know about this or you don't know about this, but and we will go in more technical details for those that know about this and how you can utilize this. Facebook, Google, Amazon, eBay, and actually many other websites know you exist even before you register an account with them. And this has been like this for a long time. And here, the thing is that they can know this by utilizing cookies, by reading cookies. But how do they do that exactly? It's very tricky. And I will try to explain. So essentially, a website can read cookies from your browser. Yeah, because they can put cookies in your browser and then they read information about your browser. But the thing is that here's an example of how cookies look. For example, there's Twitter cookies, Bing cookies, there are Facebook cookies, and they have some data associated. It can be tracking data, it can be account authentication data. So the thing is that Facebook can only access Facebook cookies. Sorry, guys. Bing can only access Bing cookies, and Twitter can only access Twitter cookies. That's it. This is due to same origin policy. These websites can access only cookies that they have placed from their domain. Google doesn't have access to Twitter cookies because of same origin policy. But here's what websites can do. So the thing is that, for example, this is a simple website. It's a simple web shop. It's a shop where they sell children's clothes. And the thing is that after further investigation, we find that in this website, they have Facebook Pixel installed to track leads from Facebook. They have Facebook like button and Facebook share button. And so since there is Facebook JavaScript code installed on this website, Facebook can put cookies from their domain to your browser. And when you arrive to Facebook, suddenly Facebook can read all of these cookies. And the thing is that these things are called third-party cookies. And we know that Facebook Pixel is installed on 11.4% of all websites. And if we talk about Google and Google Analytics, it's installed on 56.7% of all websites. And the thing is that Facebook doesn't really actually deny this. They even, when they had the scandal, with the U.S. Senate and Facebook, the Senate, United States Senate, they asked questions from Mark Zuckerberg regarding these things, and then they follow up with an answer. And in this public document, we see that actually they agree that if a browser has visited hundreds of sites in the last 5 minutes, that's a sign the device might be a bot, implying that even before arriving to a Facebook page, Facebook knows where you've been. And this is because of third-party cookies. How you can use this for your own advantage. So too much cookies, you're likely a bot. Facebook says it. However, no cookies if you don't have if you have a browser profile that is clear, and if Facebook sees, and Facebook does see it, that a lot of normal visitors have some cookie history before, then this means that you should be accumulating some cookies before logging into an existing account to warm up your browser profile, or before registering an account. So you have to accumulate third-party cookies before registering or logging into an account to build trust. Here's another thing. What you can do is that there are some websites that are quite popular that don't have the coverage as Facebook has, such as Amazon, eBay, let's say Twitter. Yes, not all Twitter, I think some websites have like Twitter feed installed, but it's really not a lot. It's not the same coverage as Facebook or Google. But ultimately, what you can do in this regard is, instead of accumulating third-party cookies for websites that don't have big coverage, you can launch a browser profile, go to Amazon.com, click some links there, put things to cart, and then close the browser profile and save it for later, for a couple of days. Why this works is because these websites, they also have, we not necessarily need to utilize third-party cookies. We can also use these like normal cookies that websites can put. But ultimately, when you have gathered these cookies, when you launch the browser profile and then you go to create an account, these websites, what they will see? They will see that this visitor exists, that the website knows that you have been here before, that you as a user exist, and that will increase your trust scores. So yes, and as well, you can use Cookie Robot, the feature we have in multi-login that can gather these cookies. The thing is that with third-party cookies, the situation is actually quite good for us, guys, because third-party cookies will soon be deprecated. Chrome will soon deprecate third-party cookies, and instead they will provide a new technology called FLoC. If we read this abbreviation, then it means Federal Learning of Cohorts, and I will try to be very brief here because ultimately it's a bit technical topic. But what they want to do is, instead of having third-party cookies, Chrome will read your browser history data. They will create a model how to convert your history into a specific number, and then this number will be available to websites to see. And advertisers and publishers, they will read your FLoC ID and accumulate a lot of data, and then based on this data, they will serve relevant ads. So a quick, it looks something like this on this picture right here, like here. And ultimately, let's say one user, let's say you went to some specific shop, you also went into some music classes, then you will be placed in the cohort number 1354. But for example, another user who has visited, let's say, the same websites, but plus maybe also some gym membership websites, then this person will be placed right here, and it will be up to websites to analyze and understand how. It will be up to websites to. It will be up to advertising companies to find out what ID is which user. So something like that. You can read more about it here. It's like just type in FLoC. It's available on the it's available on the web. It looks something like this. A website executes a code and then it retrieves an ID, as I said. So this is something that will happen to you as well. You will websites will read your ID and then will try to serve you targeted ads. We may be asking, FLoC masking? Yes, well, most probably. This FLoC is planned for 2024. We are working on how to mask it. We are experimenting with this, but yeah, most likely you will have FLoC masking as well. This will be quite crucial. Browser versions. So browser versions are thing that is somewhat a bit, let's say, controversial here. Let me explain. So what we know that browser versions are constantly being updated, and browser updates become a more frequent occurrence. Now, on this graph right here, you can see this is basically the statistics from browser versions. So let's quickly check like select some version and see how like the amount of users changes. We have Chrome 87 right here, and we can see that in December 2020, 48% of users on Chrome were using this version. Then it increased in January and then plummeted in February 2021. And this is because, why? This is because Chrome 88 came. And as you can see, this is the purple line. And the exact moment when the amount of Chrome 87 users plummeted, the number of users on Chrome 88 increased. And then it went down again. So this is like, browser versions are something that normal users have. And we also know that starting from Chrome 94 in Q3 of 2021, their release cycle changed from 6 weeks to 4 weeks. This means that now Chrome users experience browser updates much more frequently. What we've seen also using our own data, that on average 60 to 80% of users adopt a new version of Chrome within 1 month of release. Now, so this means that you, like in practical sense, make sure that you're always updated to the latest version of multi-login. We try to release the latest Chrome version with iterations of 2 to 3 or 4 versions. We're also working on increasing it, and we have quite specific goals how we can do that, and we are doing that. You should expect much more frequent releases and much more, let's say, much more safer releases as well. But in order for you to be for your accounts to better blend in within a crowd, and as we discussed before, we have to be, let's say, within that distribution of users that is that is the majority of all users. So we advise you to always be on the latest version. But the thing is that you can just change the user agent, or you can change the client hints where you show that version. But the thing is that there is also a lot of checks that websites will perform, which are called browser version inconsistencies. And the funny thing is that we have theorized about the necessity of having the latest core in 2018. Back in 2018, we just thought that it's so easy for websites to check if the browser version is true or not. And by true, I mean that the user agent is, for example, 100, and if it's really running on a core engine 98. And the inconsistency how it can be done is that simply new browser versions, they have APIs available. Let's say Chrome 102 has a new API available that would show, like, let's say, the color of your browser palette, for example. And so if you're emulating a browser version in your user agent, and in your user agent, you tell that it's 102, but your core version is 99, then it can simply check, oh, do you have this color palette API or no? And then if it really receives an error, then the websites can conclude that you are like hiding something, that your browser version is being hidden. So we actually, in 2021, we found the first confirmed cases of browser version consistency checks. We found out that Bet365 starts to work only on strict mode. Strict mode is when you kind of always create browser profiles with versions on the currently available browser core version. And we also found out that PayPal has implemented this in specific regions. Now, right here on the right, this is crazy, guys. So I've stumbled upon this on LinkedIn, and actually this guy right here on LinkedIn, he got an award from PayPal from discovering a way how to detect, like, let's say, inconsistent browser versions from PayPal. And we have confirmed that this also, there's a check on PayPal that like checks for consistent browser version. So yeah, definitely make sure that once you update to a newer version, that you also update your browser profiles by clicking the update button. Vladimir, I see that you have a big question. Can you please post it in QA so that later we can answer these questions? Ruslan, also, I see that you have a lot of questions, so put them in QA section of the webinar. Let's talk about Canvas and Webgl. Canvas and Webgl. So like back in 2016 and 2017, we believed that Canvas was dependent on the video card. So it had high entropy because there's a lot of different video cards, and hence the end Canvas hash is like has high entropy. Yes, it has a lot of variety, so it can be used to track you. But the thing is that with release of Chrome 80, Canvas and Web we actually recorded a video where we showed, you can check it on YouTube, that we have opened multiple computers and with different video cards, and we found out that 60% of all devices on the same operating system and browser had the same Canvas hash. So the only and for example, so what we found out is that when you we found out that Canvas rendering mechanism has been changed in different Chrome versions. It has been changed on 80, 86, and 90. And just imagine a tracking system that uses Canvas hash or Canvas fingerprint to identify a user across the web. And then this Canvas hash, this Canvas algorithm changes all the time. How websites are not incentivized to use Canvas algorithm, Canvas fingerprint at all, because it always changes. Why would you do that? So Canvas and Webgl, ultimately at this point, you should be leaving it on off. We don't see that how websites can check it. We only see that if you do, the only way that they do check it, if they check if you're masking it or not. So it's just better to leave it as is. Webgl, by the way, if you don't mask it, also Canvas is one of the ways how websites can detect if you're using a real operating system. Because since it's dependent on the browser and operating system, then virtual operating systems that we talked before, they no longer, it's no longer a viable option for tracking. We also noticed that Webgl metadata started to include the driver version. This might not necessarily mean something bad or good or anything practical. We have also applied these changes in multi-login, but it just goes to show that a lot of these hardware fingerprints are actually changing all the time, and websites. It's much more difficult for websites to track you. So, guys, I think we are winning the game. So, I actually have one bonus. This is material is being we are actually closer to the end. One bonus I have for you is that if you're using multi-login for Facebook or any website that actually asks for a selfie check, go ahead to your multi-login browser profile settings and set media devices inputs to 0 to show that you don't have a camera. And what it will ultimately do, it will show to the website that you don't have a camera, and it will decrease the amount of selfie checks that you get. So this is just a thing that we've noticed a couple of times in our testing. So definitely use that. Another bonus too is that we're actually launching a personalized service to help you improve your success rates. This is something like a consultation or let's say frequent talks, also talks with our developers, and some sort of customizations to your existing setup. But what we ultimately want to do is we want to try and work with you and improve your success rates. Now, this is totally free. How it can be totally free? Well, I can explain. We are learning from helping users, and as a result, we improve our software. That's pretty much our incentive. So this is a service that you can sign up. You can scan the barcode and provide your details. We cannot really work with a lot of users right now because primarily I will be working with you, and a couple of other technical people will also join. We are just testing this service out. So if you are interested in us personally helping you increase your success rates, provide your details, and if you qualify and if you have available spots, we will get in touch with you. Again, this is totally free. This is just to help you, and as a result, we can learn. As a result, we can also learn. Please provide as much detailed information for you as you can, because for some people we can help. Maybe we might not be able to help. We don't know, but we ask these questions so that we know. We ask these questions just to know who are you and how can we impact your business. Okay, guys, there's actually a lot of questions, really a lot of questions. what we will try to do is we will finish right now, and most interesting questions we will try to synthesize together and send you a follow-up email, or we'll send a recording where we will discuss these questions. There's a lot of questions. We are already over our time limit. At this point, I have to say thank you very much for coming and participating in this webinar. We will have much more webinars in the future. Thanks very much. You were amazing today. Thank you.